The History by the Muskoka Man, Chapter 5 of Zozerion. Zozerion's impatience aside, his feats of achievement are to be held high even in Kibor. He was born on Netterket late in the 6th epoch of Aura, the only child of Terra of Praxis and Ethelgrin of Netterket. On the eve of his birth, the giant star Gogamon in the Pyrexian galaxy went hypernova, and lit up the night sky of Netterket like a second gigantic sun for weeks thereafter. This was thought to be a good omen, or sign, by the Alphanians of the cleric caste, and true to that spurious superstition of the cleric caste did young Zozerion's life become. At 2 years of age, his father, Ethelgrin, as a member of the warrior caste and an expert weapons designer, was called to defuse a QFD, quantum fracturing device, found by a recent scan of a large moon orbiting a planet with a decaying orbit in a rather large binary star system in the nearby Beringris galaxy. Ethelgrin could not have known the moon was booby-trapped, but when a ship landed on the surface, the ship's own mass set the extremely sensitive device off, and in the blink of an eye, the actual fabric of quantized space was split open like the tearing of a giant cloth, and all matter and energy within 100,000 light-years was gone in the blink of an eye, sucked into the eternal void in between dimensions, and sealed there forever as the rift slammed shut. This tragedy left Terra in great despair, and bereft of warmth ever after for all but her beloved child Zozerion. She grieved for the rest of her days in silent despair over her beloved husband's loss, but would never allow Zozerion to see herself cry, nor weep so as to honor her husband's memory. At Ethelgrin's memorial, Terra is still remembered for these poignant words. My fellow Alphanians, life isn't sunny every day, and on every garden a little rain must fall. An ironic statement that would seem to hold some deep universal truth for Terra of Praxis. Zozerion, as most children, was ever resilient, though, in spite of his father's untimely demise, and grew at an incredible rate. At 7 years of age, he could already outrun and subdue the primitive carnivores of the grasslands, similar to the lions and tigers of Earth, that he played with on Netterket. These carnivores surrounded his home, and he was quite familiar with them. Zozerion was fast and fleet of foot, and could run all day at full speed, and never tire. At the age of 10, as was his right, he entered and won the Netterket Centathlon, a 100-mile foot race run annually on Netterket. Astonishingly, he outran all others of his homeworld, including many much older experienced Alphanians, some from the warrior caste. At 12, he was the youngest Alphanian ever to graduate the warrior caste initiation of El Katuk, the trials of the body, and an elementary post of acclaim that many do not receive until well into their 20s. At 18, he attained El Kamha, through the trial of death, an auspicious appointment for his age to say the least, for which he was awarded the post of Lord Viscount of Netterket, replacing Karobin, his aunt, who could now move on from Netterket to see more of Aura, as was the custom of many Alphanians under 6 epochs old. Warriors and clerics alike. At 33, he received the Order of Oberon, and was awarded supreme command of Netterket's warrior caste upon completion of El Sansu, the art of the warrior. This had never been completed by anyone younger than 75 before, and there was much concern at the time about a planetary command being given to one so young. At the age of 137, he succeeded in achieving master status with the completion of El Yochim, the trials of mind and spirit, and became supreme commander of the warrior caste for the entire Andromeda galaxy. Once again, he surpassed all who came before him, for the earliest one anyone had been proven and granted a leadership of the galaxy's warrior caste in the past was at 753 years of age by Voltarion of Gorshenka in the 6th epoch. He was one of Zozerion's many mentors of high acclaim that Terra insisted he learn from as he was growing up, and so it was on Hydraxia in the late 9th epoch that Zozerion's greatest honor as a warrior came in the hour of his greatest sorrow. In the wake of the Zenovian blast that killed his beloved mother Terra and all those living on Netherket, Zozerion still very much grieving the loss of his mother, he was requested by the High Council to capture alive for trial, if possible, one Ulrich of Gorthos, the leader and founding father of the Durak Doom, whom the High Council, incidentally, knew for certain to be behind the Zenovian blast. Amazonia swore it was a waste of time trying to capture one so ancient and powerful as Ulrich, and said that it would be better to just end his miserable existence than that he openly admitted he cared not for anyways, as do all the Durak Doom according to their own doctrine. Amazonia was overruled though by Aqualatuk and Apodinotep, both quoting the Platinum Protocol, and charge was given to Zozerion to capture Ulrich Gorthos, the abomination of desolation. Unfortunately, Amazonia could not battle with Ulrich because of a spell he had cast upon himself errantly long ago in his youth, as a scientist on Gorthos, in an attempt to make himself impervious to any assault of his brethren. Tragically, Ulrich used the craft incorrectly, and instead he made himself so repulsive that no female of any kind of any species could look upon him ever, and even males would be aghast at his appearance and recoil in horror. Amazonia then did something she had never done ever before. She unchained Akhenaten in full view of the council and bestowed her own spear to Zozerion, temporarily, to enable him to battle Ulrich. As she clasped the spear's chain manacle to Zozerion's right forearm, Zozerion felt a torrent of energy course through his entire being. His deep green eyes began to glow before the council, and he felt as if he had 1,000 galaxies worth of power in him. It was truly incredible how much power Amazonia had at her command, and with a deadly, serious glance, she looked at Zozerion and said, "Now you know a depth of me like no other, and your silence of it upon pain of death from the spear I shall have. Upon this spear you now hold is required your immediate oath of that silence." Aqualatuk inquired apprehensively, "Do you think this is wise, Master Amazonia?" To which she replied, "Hope it shall not be needed, Master Aqualatuk, but I fear without it, Master Zozerion will surely die." "My silence or my death," said Zozerion. The great weapon Akhenaten had been forged by Seraphim Malloy, the greatest Alphanian weapons master of them all, in secret long ago. Akhenaten is a weapon of immense power, capable of rendering the most minute of probabilities into being an almost certain event by reversing the polarity of dimensional probability. It is a very effective weapon when the odds are stacked against those who wield it. The problem with using such a weapon, though, is the unforeseen consequences that can arise when meddling with the laws of probability. When they finally met on the plains of Gungordek, Zozerion's presence of being was made manifest many-fold by his possession of Akhenaten. As the spear was not made for his use, it proved hard for Zozerion to control, and his countenance was so fierce that his mere glance drove the lower minions of the Durak Doom before Ulrich to their deaths in a kind of cerebral madness, as they would bleed from their eyes and die of a cerebral embolism upon his glance. This left only Ulrich in his battle dress standing motionless, with bodies of his guild lying round him. Ulrich looked at Zozerion through his helmet, eyes glowing fiery red, and said, "So, Amazonia sends her granddaughter's bastard child to procure me for the reckoning." Zozerion stood silent, his deep green eyes glowing intensely amidst the blowing dust of Hydraxia. He gripped Akhenaten tightly. Ulrich continued, "It'll take more than the son of a bumbling weapons manufacturer to subdue me, boy. Do you think you're the first to lay claim to my appointment?" Zozerion replied, "I seek neither your appointment nor your life, Master Ulrich Gorthos, only to honor my duty as a member of the warrior caste, as I am sworn." "I take it, then, you are yielding?" Ulrich grinned menacingly and laughed, then retorted, Well, you've got some balls now, don't you, boy?" Zozerion replied, "There are two outcomes here, Master Ulrich, and only two. First, yield and face trial. Second, die where you stand." Ulrich replied sarcastically, "You've come to capture me in a spear and shield and a loincloth, and you wish me to yield?" Ulrich laughed his grisly laugh. "I'll take that as number two, then," said Zozerion, smiling back at Ulrich. And with that, the battle commenced. As fast as light, Zozerion, in one fluid movement, reached over his shoulder and grabbed Grok, hanging on his back by a leather thong about his neck, and brought it down hard, only to pass right through Ulrich into the ground beneath, quaking the ground violently. Ulrich had quantum shifted. The next thing Zozerion felt was the thorny battle boot of Ulrich as it connected with his ribs and sent him flying across the plain, with Ulrich shouting, "How's that feel, boy? Too bad your father wasn't around when you were young to teach you some manners." Zozerion jumped back up and replied, "So, it's the hard way then, is it? Very well." And with that, Zozerion renewed the assault, trying every trick in the scrolls, and a few he thought were known only to him. The battle raged on for hours, back and forth, back and forth. Zozerion at one point during the epic battle realized Ulrich could not use Death is Yours, his battle mace, while he was dimensionally shifting. Knowing this, Zozerion feigned injury after one of Ulrich's latest charges, and lying on the ground with nonetheless a nasty energy blast wound on his left side, Ulrich walked over, overconfident as ever, and lifts his giant thorny battle boot as to crush Zozerion's head into the Hydraxian dust. In less time than it takes to blink an eye, Zozerion swung his club Grok deep and hard in the inside of Ulrich's left leg, that his weight was supported on, and upset him on his back in the air towards the ground, keeping the motion of his club ever moving with his left arm. Zozerion swung Grok in a complete circle and brought it upside the back of the head of the falling Ulrich before he even hit the ground, removing his battle helmet, revealing the hideous creature beneath. It was Zozerion who was aghast at his appearance and recoiled in horror, even so as to give Ulrich the time needed to retreat a ways off from the foray. It was then that Ulrich, with all malice and violent ferocity, drained the planet's atmosphere of all its energy and scorched the sky in his sequestering. He then fired a most heinous volley from his mace, driving Zozerion across the plain. It was there on the plains of Gungordek, at that very moment, that Zozerion, with all due vengeance and fierce tenacity, rose from the pit of pushed-up gravel he found himself lying in after Ulrich's forceful volley. Looking straight into the fiery red eyes of Ulrich, he began a charge, running directly towards him, headlong, weaving left, then right, then left, then right. And when he was only 10 paces away, Ulrich fired another great volley at Zozerion, who simultaneously threw his shield at Ulrich's volley to deflect it and jumped high into the air, with Akhenaten avoiding the deadly blast to come down directly over the head of Ulrich with both hands, thrusting Akhenaten into Ulrich's armor at the neck in the right shoulder, passing deep into his body and skewering his shifting dimensional heart before he could leave or shift again. Finally, slaying the great Alphanian mutation that had ravaged many worlds since his inception in the late Third Epoch, Zozerion kept Death is Yours, Ulrich's mace, and cut Ulrich's head off and had it fashioned into a golden scepter that he gave to Amazonia as tribute for lending her spirit to him, ironically considered a somewhat morbid honor of this greatest of vanquished foes among the warrior caste. That is the completion of the 5th chapter. I hope you have liked it. Please give me a Hail Mary and a couple of thumbs up, and I hope to hear you all from you soon. Take care, and good night.